Forensic anthropology has its roots in both physical anthropology and forensic science, emerging as a distinct field in the early 20th centuries. Its history can be traced back to the late 19th centuries when scientists began applying anatomical knowledge to legal contexts. One of the earliest cases was in 1897 when Polish anthropologists used skeletal analysis in a murder case. However, the formalization of forensic anthropologists began in the United States during the 1930s, largely influenced by the work of Dr. Wilton M. Krogman, who published key texts on skeletal identification. Forensic anthropology is a specialized branch of physical and biological anthropologies that applies the science of human skeletal analysis to legal and criminal investigations. Forensic anthropologists help identify human remains and determine information about the deceased, such as distinguishing human bones from animals' bone, analyzing the age at death, sex, ancestry, and also stature. Other than that, forensic anthropology also help in determining if bone shows any sign of trauma, such as gunshot wound, blunt force trauma, sharp force trauma, and also identifying possible disease or conditions such as arthritis or head fractures. The tool and technique used in forensic anthropology including osteometry, DNA analysis, radiographic comparison, 3D scanning and imaging, and forensic taphonomy, which is studying how the bodies decay.
Dr. Alison Galloway, a forensic anthropologist and professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz, was enlisted by the Salinas Police Department to assist in the initial forensic examination in order to properly preserve the site and recover the skeletal remains. She found that the skeleton was complete and undisturbed by animals based on the pelvic bone structure and skull features. She identified the remains as a male. She also determined that the remains had been there for a number of years, as there was no odor, no grease in the bones, and no soft tissues left. While sifting through the remains, Dr. Galloway found a .38 caliber bullet, supporting the theory of homicide. She and the investigative team also recovered several personal items, including a set of keys and a cigarette lighter. The remains were sent to the UC Santa Cruz Anthropology Lab for further analysis. There, Dr. Galloway confirmed that the remains belonged to an adolescent male of European descent, approximately 5 feet 10 tall. The bullet found with the remains indicated that the victim had been shot. To verify the cause of death, Dr. Galloway looked for any peculiarities on the bones and discovered 2 gunshot holes in the victim's skull. There was also evidence of at least 1 entry wound to the victim's back. Sergeant Miller connected the case to a missing person report and discovered that the remains could be those of Chris Denoyer. Dr. Kevin London conducted a dental analysis by comparing Chris's dental x-rays with the victim's dental remains. The comparison resulted in a positive match. Investigators finally had a name and a face for their victims, Chris Denoyer.
On 13 January 1984, Chris disappeared. Jason told the family that Chris lived voluntarily and started a new life in Newport Beach. After his disappearance, a mailgram arrived alleged from Chris. He stated that he was fine and told the family not to worry about him. But Jerry and others noticed that phrasing is spelled off. Years later, his mailgram was traced to Jason's own phone line. It became clear that the message was forgery, which he attempted to create an illusion that Chris had run away. There were other warning signs too. Jason claims that he had given Chris dogs away too far, but when the investigator visited the farm, the owner had no idea what they were talking. Later, the Chris dog's collar was found in the Jason's truck. Fast forward 40 years, which January 1998, a new homeowner had moved into the whole house. The new homeowner noticed a horrible smell from the crawl space. One day, they began investigating the crawl space. They discovered a shoe protruding from the dirt, and upon the further digging, they found a human remain buried in a shallow grave. The remains were later confirmed via dental record to be those Chris Denoyer. He had been buried under his own home for this entire time. Forensic experts determined the cause of death with 3 gunshot wounds, 1 from the skull and 2 in the back, and he is buried shortly after the murder. At this point, suspicion firmly turned to Jason Villata, police execute a warrant on Jason's possession, they find his .357 revolver and matching bullets. Ballistic linked them to big gunshot in Chris' remains. The milligram was perhaps the strongest piece of circumstantial evidence. Phone record shows that Jason's made a phone call that generated it. He had created an illusion that Chris is still alive, even though likely he buried Chris within hours or days of disappearance. Witnesses also recalled that Jason making threats and showing signs of anger toward Chris. On 6 February 1999, Jason was arrested. His first trial ended in hung jury, but during the second trial, prosecutor presented more evidence, and he was convicted a second-degree murder and sentenced to 7 years to life. He has been denied parole several times in 2021 due to lack of remorse and danger that he still possesses.
When Christopher Denoyer's remains were discovered beneath a crawl space, they did more than confirm a missing person's fate. They became evidence and the foundation of a reopened murder investigation. Once forensic anthropologists estimated the time of death and identified the remains, investigators had a timeline, which is the early 1990s, and a name. This timeline instantly ruled out several leads and narrowed the list of people who had access to the home during that period. Detailed analysis revealed multiple gunshot wounds to the skull, confirming that Denoyer had been murdered. This wasn't a missing person anymore, it was a homicide, and the bones now held the key to the truth. With a confirmed identity, cause of death, and time frame, police re-examined witness statements, alibis, and ownership records of the house. Anyone who lived there in the early 90s was now under scrutiny. Statements that once went unchallenged were now inconsistent with the forensic timeline. The physical evidence directly contradicted some earlier testimonies, allowing police to question suspects again with a new advantage. In the end, forensic anthropology did not just tell investigators what happened. It told them who to look at, what to ask, and what to believe. In the Denoyer case, science wasn't just part of the investigation, it was the breakthrough. The Christopher Denoyer case proves that even after decades in silence, bones can still speak, and forensic anthropology knows how to listen. Through careful analysis of skeletal remains, scientists were able to give investigators a timeline, a cause of death, and ultimately a direction toward the truth. Without those bones and the experts trained to read them, this case may never have been solved.